Hello and welcome back to AWS On Air, live from the AWS Expo. My name is Nathan Peck. I'm one of your hosts today, and I'm joined by two fantastic guests to talk about one of the exciting launches that happened today. So let me let's start with Sebastian.
So I'm Boaz Zinnemann, developer advocate from AWS, coming from Israel.
And I'm Jared Haywood. I'm a product manager on the Amazon SageMaker team, who we just launched Amazon SageMaker Canvas today.
Awesome. So I heard about SageMaker Canvas and watched, during the keynote. It was launched during the part about machine learning, and it was introduced a little bit as a tool that would help people to create their models interactively. Tell us more about what SageMaker Canvas was designed for, and why customers would want to use it.
Yeah, absolutely. So when we look at the customer base of SageMaker, there's a lot that is involved with coding and in-depth knowledge of data science and these really hard concepts for your average person to be able to understand. And so the real goal of Canvas was to open up that and democratize data science, to give a really UI-friendly tool where somebody, a business analyst, for example, would be able to come into the product, drag and drop. They have access to these files. They're already in Tableau or Excel or some other product doing data analytics, but to give them more advanced diagnostic analytics and even predictive analytics, giving them a tool like Canvas enables them to be able to do machine learning without writing a line of code.
That sounds fascinating. So what I know about machine learning is that it all starts with the data. Like, the machine learning model that you create is only as good as the data that you plug in. And oftentimes, that data could be coming from a wide variety of different sources. It could be stored in any number of different locations, databases, flat files, some CSV that's on my current laptop.
CSV is super popular.
Yeah, absolutely. So given all these different data formats, how do I start from that data and continue on my process of creating a machine learning model?
Yeah, so the beautiful thing when you're looking at an analyst, they already have those data sets, right? They're doing comparisons of different trends, et cetera, and whether that's, again, in some kind of BI tool like QuickSight or some other tool. And so they already have a familiarity with the data. What they don't have is this familiarity with these complex data science concepts or coding. The in-depth type of code that you might need to be able to actually implement a machine learning and production type of pipeline.
It's additional layer that's usually being done by a data scientist.
Right, right. And so now we have a tool where a data analyst can take that data set that they're already using to do some diagnostic analytics on something like churn or conversion or delivery time of packages, whatever the case is that they're trying to do in their specific business unit. They can now enhance and enrich using machine learning to be able to give them more accurate predictions and forecasts. A lot of these analysts in these positions are going to end up using something like a rolling average, right, to generate a forecast. And that's the best tool that they really have available in today's marketplace.
Yeah.
With something like Amazon SageMaker Canvas, it now enables them to get a little bit more.
Okay, so I understand that this is a step up from the rolling average for sure. One of the things that I've discovered about machine learning is I talk to people who want to get into machine learning, and one of the first things they realize is that they have to write all these ETL jobs to connect to S3 or connect to this and that and transform the data before they could even start working with it. And so they kind of get discouraged because they're like, well, I wanted to be doing all kind of really cool machine learning stuff, but instead I'm spending so much time writing ETL jobs. Is that something that SageMaker Canvas helps with?
Yeah, I would say yes and no. So I don't want to overpromise and say that it's the magical wizard that can do everything, right? Because that doesn't exist yet.
Oh yeah.
But some of the things that it really does help with is once you have that data set and you've kind of have your target that or whatever it is that you're wanting to predict, whether it's like lifetime value or whatever the case is, Canvas is automatically doing a ton of data cleaning up missing values, doing a ton of different feature engineering, all behind the scenes, doing a lot of things that a data scientist would normally do, like feature scaling and standardization. And those are words, honestly, that some of these analysts might not even know that they need to be aware of to make sure that the machine learning model is actually doing a good job at predicting. So it doesn't solve every ETL issue, right? But within Canvas, you can connect to S3, Redshift, Snowflake, even local files. Like, so simple drag and drop of those CSVs that we all have on our desktop. Yeah, Canvas helps you to be able to work with those files to get valuable insights and outputs.
Wow. And I think when talking about barriers, one of the barriers is actually writing code. So usually data scientists use a lot of Python, all kind of libraries, super popular for machine learning. How does it help me as somebody that might not come from a development background or doesn't know how to write this code?
Yeah, so because so I'm excited for the point that we get to show some of the actual product so that you can kind of get a look and feel for that. But because it's UI-centric machine learning, meaning that you don't have to write code. So if you're coming without a development background, but let's even flip that for a second and talk about like the data scientist or the machine learning engineer, right? Who do have that level of sophistication.
I'm sure many of them will love to give some time back from writing code.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. And when we've been talking with our customers through the development and beta process, that's a lot of the things that they've kind of said. It's twofold. It's not just, hey, give it to our analyst. It's also, hey, let's accelerate our data scientists. And if that means scaling out to a team of analysts to do things that the data science team maybe doesn't have the bandwidth to handle because it's much more marginal improvement. Yeah. It doesn't have the same scale as the types of projects or complexity as the type of projects that these data science teams are prioritizing. And so having a tool like this has allowed our customers to scale that data science work to a new persona who doesn't have the same, it doesn't need the same level of depth. They don't need a PhD, finally, to be able to do machine learning.
I would assume that in many cases you would like to run something quick and dirty, just to get the hands of your data to see which direction you can take it.
Absolutely.
And that might be something that will shorten the time to get a better understanding of what the data means.
And I'm really excited about like some of our collaboration components around that because that's exactly what we see is for some of these organizations, they're going to be using Canvas to rapid prototype. And then because it's completely exportable into SageMaker Studio, so everything that is done inside of Canvas can be replicated in code inside of SageMaker Studio with a simple couple clicks of a button.
So that was actually my other question. This is part of the SageMaker family of products.
Yep.
What are the integrations with the other parts? Like there are many different type of services inside SageMaker. How can I take advantage of Canvas inside this ecosystem?
Yeah, so this is my favorite part about the product because it gives us a glimpse into the future vision of what SageMaker can offer customers in terms of this interoperability between something like SageMaker Studio, where you are coding, where you are inside of these Python notebooks, etc., and something like Canvas, where you don't have to have any code. And so I see the future of this being completely interoperable so that you can use the tool that you want, when you want, with the customizability that you want.
Yeah, that sounds like an incredibly compelling value proposition to me because normally when it comes to experimenting with machine learning models, you might be talking about the experiment is going to take a while. So you're talking about man hours there, you're talking about delays where you could be working on another project because the experiment was complicated. But what I'm hearing with SageMaker Canvas is it lowers that bar to experimentation. So I have an idea, and maybe I can spin up a machine learning model out of my idea in a matter of hours, potentially. I can pass that off to engineers if they want to do a deeper dive into the Python notebook and really tweak all the values. But now I can run this experiment, and I don't have to worry about, am I taking time away from another more valuable project that I could be working on?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay, can we look at the product?
Absolutely. So we've had some network issues here, but happy to share some screenshots that I was able to grab right after launch today. So here, this is just showing kind of the basic UI of Canvas, and right out of the gate, you see that it's very centered around this UI, kind of visually friendly, making it not scary. Machine learning to somebody who's never done it before can be kind of scary, and so at this level of simplicity, we're hoping to be able to allow more people
I assume
to use the
a lot
product.
of people will find it similar to other tools they're using, like BI tools or maybe some...
And you're right, and I think it fits much more in that genre, right? It's much more similar to something like QuickSight, maybe, than it is to something like a studio notebook. But that's because we have this emphasis on this no and low code environment. So as we go through, just kind of show you, we can walk through the product, a few screenshots, can add connections to Snowflake or Redshift as of today. We'll have more data sources coming in the very fast future.
That's great. And what I don't see here is I don't see lines of code that I had to write to be like, well, watch for new files coming into Snowflake, or watch for new files coming into this Redshift, and export them out to another system. I just hit add a connection.
Yeah, and it's very simple. We really don't want our users to have to code. The one kind of exception to that would be SQL, right? Like if you're connecting to one of those SQL-based connections like Redshift or Snowflake, it doesn't necessarily mean you have to know SQL. You might be able to just pull a full view or table. But we do anticipate when we're looking at analysts and these types of users, they are used to data.
Yeah,
and
but
so
I think SQL today is a very common practice for analysts. I don't think you can be today a data analyst without knowing basic SQL.
And on the flip side of that, I'd also say that for that persona who does know SQL, it actually gives them the ability to do a lot of that ETL in that single step of the query, right? And so then they're pulling into Canvas exactly the data set that they want in order to generate predictions. So as I show this, I'm just kind of showing, hey, can simply drag and drop some...
Basically uploading from my machine.
I'm uploading from my machine a few data sets that I want to be able to generate predictions on. I can join, here's one of the powerful things that I actually do love about Canvas. You can join these disparate data sets. So if you have a data set that you're pulling from Snowflake or Redshift or wherever else that you have a connection to, you can then join those data sets within the Canvas environment so that you can have a full feature set, be able to really enrich the data that you're trying to use to generate a machine learning model.
Can I just say, I love that visualization of the inner, left, right, and outer join. That's one of those things that I've been doing SQL for years, but I always have to Google, okay, which join do I need here to join these two pieces of data together?
You're starting with the wrong one, right?
I know, right? I'm sure I'm not the only one who always starts with the wrong join, but here I see a preview, and I can kind of understand, even if I'm not super deeply technical on SQL, okay, the data is joining in this particular direction, and which data set is joining to which.
So as we move through the product, we now kind of have a data set that we're ready to use. And we kind of walk through a very simple process of select, build, analyze, and predict. And so really walking the user through these simple steps, sequential steps of how do you get to this point that I can generate a forecast or a prediction on some future event, right? And within this, there's a ton of different analytics tools. We heavily focus on visualizations, and you can click on columns and get descriptive statistics, histograms, chart, you name it, it's probably in there.
This is interesting. Tell me more about these indicators down at the bottom where it says like missing, mismatched, unique. It feels like this would help me detect like issues potentially with my data set before I even bother trying to train a model, right?
Yeah, and you bring up a really good point, and not everybody may be familiar with those specific topics of like, well, why does mismatched data or missing data matter? But at the end of the day, we can all kind of use our logic and say, hey, missing data probably means that there's something up, whether that's missing by purpose or just happens to be missing. This can give you that immediate flag of, hey, there's maybe something that you want to go investigate a little bit more. And we're going to handle a lot of things automatically. If there were too many missing values in a column, it would tell you, hey, there's too many missing values for us to be sure that this is actually going to help predictions in the future.
Wow. I could even see the unique being valuable because, let's say I expect that I'm uploading 1,000 unique products, but then I actually see unique and it says 2. I'm like, wait a minute, what happened to the other 998 product IDs that I expected to be uploading into this column?
Yeah, no, exactly. And where you're looking at those, essentially just for if a data scientist is listening, it's reducing the complexity of high cardinality and sparsity, et cetera, and saying, hey, you know what, all of that's okay. If it's really bad, we'll give you a warning. Otherwise, we have cleaning techniques that are going to help increase the signal in your data anyways. So here you can kind of choose a standard build or a quick build, just depending on how comprehensive you want that training to be. Do you want to wait a couple hours and prioritize accuracy really heavily? Or do you want something really quick so that you can be iterating through this cycle, or you just want it now, right? So that difference is within just a couple of minutes and hours.
Wow.
So actually in a couple of minutes I can see results. And it might be not super accurate, but should give me a good sense of where I'm going. I
wouldn't even necessarily say that it's not super accurate.
It depends on the data.
I would say that generally the difference that we're seeing between those is fairly marginal. So the question is, do you care about that extra 0.5% of accuracy?
The fine-tuning part is the one that takes most of the time. Yeah.
Exactly.
But it's more than sufficient for a staging environment or a quick test. I might not necessarily use it in production, but this is the studio where I'm actually building out that first pass.
Well, and again, that's going to depend, right? Like, what is the scale? What is the importance of what it is that you're trying to predict? Right, like in some organizations, they maybe don't have the scale that extra 0.2% matters. Whereas another organization, maybe Amazon, maybe it does, right?
Yeah.
And so it gives you the flexibility to really get what you want out of the product. And here, just go through a couple views. You can generate a preview model before you even build that completely, and you get kind of a rough estimate of what it thinks that model is going to perform at, and even some feature importance telling you, hey, these are the things that on this rough estimate we think really matter in the prediction. These are the things, these are the columns.
So you did not define any of them. It was extracted from the data.
That's correct. That's correct. Yeah, and so it is immediately kind of giving me some of these insights of what actually matters.
That's pretty fascinating. I could totally imagine plugging in a bunch of columns of data and not even knowing, which signals were the most important. And here the service's total time on website was the most important signal. And so I had just learned something about my own product. Even if I wasn't even necessarily planning to use the model, I
diagnostic value.
More now.
Absolutely. And that's one of the things that we look at with Canvas, right? A lot of people do have experience with these descriptive statistics, like, oh, here's the mean, here's kind of the trend, and then you move into more diagnostic, predictive, and prescriptive analytics. Canvas is really helping bridge that persona who is stuck in these descriptive statistics, move into more advanced diagnostic, so why did this happen? And then predictive, what will happen, and then even prescriptive of how can I influence what will happen.
Wow.
So if we move on, I love what you said about learning what matters. And so we kind of saw that we had this absolute value of, hey, total time on the website is really making a difference of if somebody converts or not. But then we kind of are able to dive into directionality of how these different times are influencing the probability or the likelihood that somebody converts. And I know that we're getting a little bit short on time, so I just want to show a few more things where it does give you the ability to dive deeper and deeper. And so for somebody who does have a little bit more experience or wants to learn more, maybe doesn't have that machine learning experience but wants to gain some, we're giving them that opportunity and the tools with tooltips and just additional information, advanced metrics even, to dive down into some of these concepts that maybe a data scientist is familiar with, right?
Accuracy, precision, recall,
right,
basic data for every model.
Exactly. And finally, the very last thing that I want to show today is the collaboration feature, where we really remove all of these high-level abstractions that we've had. And so you can share this model, simply copy a link, and then we move it into Studio, where we can now see all of the notebooks, all of these other more advanced metrics, hyperparameters, et cetera, that a data scientist is more familiar with. And so
wow.
It really gives...
Taking you to the next stage.
Taking you to the next stage. taking you to the next stage. So I'm really excited about Canvas and this feature set, and that it gives us a peek into the vision of the SageMaker products and suite.
Okay.
Thank you so much for showing us this. It makes me excited about machine learning, and I'm ready to go try it out.
Awesome. Yeah, no, you can absolutely go today. We launched SageMaker Canvas. You can find that on the SageMaker console or Google SageMaker Canvas.
Thank you very much.